Take a second and think about the last time you drank a glass of water without even thinking about it. You didn't check it. You didn't smell it. You didn't worry, even for a second, that it might kill you. Now imagine that same simple act being the single most dangerous thing you do every single day for your entire life. That was your ancestors' reality, not for a few rough years, for over 2 million years. And somehow, you're still here. Reading this, breathing, alive. That's not luck. That's the ending of one of the most brutal survival stories your family ever lived through, and almost none of you have ever heard it. So let's go back. Picture your ancestors kneeling beside a still, murky pool at the edge of a forest. No hesitation on their faces, just thirst. To you, that water is a death sentence. Cholera, dysentery. Parasites that burrow into intestines and stay there for years. To them, it was just Tuesday. You have to ask yourself, how does a species survive drinking something that would put a modern person in a hospital bed within a week? Part of the answer is inside you, right now, in your own body. Your gut today reacts fast, loud, almost too sensitive for its own good. One bad meal and you're doubled over. But your ancestors' guts were forged completely differently, generation after generation, by a process that had absolutely no mercy in it. The humans who could fight off bad bacteria and survive lived to have children. The ones who couldn't simply didn't get the chance to become your ancestors. That toughness wasn't designed. It wasn't chosen. It was built from failure, over and over, for hundreds of thousands of years, until what remained was tough enough to keep the species alive. Think about what that actually means. Every strength your body carries today was paid for by someone who didn't survive long enough to carry it themselves. They also learned lessons the hard way, and passed them down without ever writing a single word. Moving water, safer. A flowing stream carries danger downstream in a way. Still water, dangerous. It lets everything rotten sit and multiply and wait. That rule wasn't taught in a classroom. It wasn't printed in a book. It was carved into instinct by grief, by watching people get sick after drinking from the wrong pool, over and over, until the pattern became impossible to ignore. And then, almost completely by accident, they stumbled onto something that changed the entire trajectory of the species. Fruit left out too long didn't just spoil, it transformed. Certain bacteria took hold first, and turned that liquid slightly acidic, slightly alcoholic, just enough to kill off many of the deadlier germs hiding inside it. Your ancestors had no idea what bacteria even was. They didn't understand chemistry or biology or anything close to it, they just noticed something simple. People who drank the fermented liquid got sick less often than people who didn't. So an accident became a habit, and a habit, repeated across generations, became one of the very first medicines your family line ever had. Now here's the part that changes everything about how you should see this story. For most of human history, dirty water was very likely the single biggest killer of children under the age of 5. Not lions stalking the grasslands, not long stretches of starvation. Water. Something completely invisible. Something completely unavoidable. Sit with that for a second. Every single parent before you, going back tens of thousands of years, watched their children drink from the same water they themselves had no choice but to drink. And far too often, that water is what took the child from them. This is the real reason your ancestors had so many children. Not because life was abundant or easy. The opposite. Because deep down, they knew that most of those children might not make it to adulthood. Having a large family wasn't a sign of hope or comfort. It was armor. It was a defense mechanism against a heartbreak they already knew, from bitter experience, was coming. Every single person reading this right now is descended from families who buried children because of water. Not once, not twice. Many times, across many generations. That kind of loss was so constant, so relentless, that it became almost invisible. It got baked into the way people loved each other, the way they grieved, the way they simply picked themselves back up and kept going. Because there was no other option. Imagine carrying that weight, generation after generation, and never once being able to name what was actually killing your children. No word for bacteria. No concept of contamination. Just watching it happen, again and again, and doing the only thing you could. Passing down whatever tiny rules seemed to help. And this is exactly why fire mattered so much more than we ever give it credit for. Boiling water kills the things the human eyes simply cannot see. Your ancestors didn't understand germs. They didn't understand microscopic organisms living inside a puddle. But they noticed something they could actually observe. Water that had been treated with fire made fewer people sick. Fewer children died. That single observation, repeated and tested across countless generations, became something close to sacred knowledge. It got passed down as ritual and instinct long before anyone could explain the science behind why it actually worked. Fire and fermentation weren't just conveniences. They were humanity's first real weapons in an invisible war. A war fought silently, generation after generation, at the edge of every river, every stream, every stagnant pool your ancestors were ever forced to depend on. And here's the thing that should really sit with you. This war never had a clear victory. There was no moment where humans finally won, and the danger disappeared. It simply got a little less lethal, one small discovery at a time. A slightly tougher gut here, a slightly smarter rule there, a slightly safer drink, invented completely by accident. None of it was enough on its own. But stacked together, generation after generation, it was just enough to keep the species from disappearing entirely. So the next time you fill up a glass of water without a second thought, without checking it, without fearing it, remember what that moment actually represents. You're not just drinking water. You're drinking the result of thousands of generations of people who fought an enemy they couldn't see, who buried children they couldn't save, who kept going anyway, one small discovery at a time, so that one day, someone like you could stand at a sink, turn a tap, and never once have to think about whether it might kill you. That silence, that ease you feel every single time you drink water, is the loudest proof there is that they never gave up.